Welcome, Vols and Lady Vols, to Power Tea Talk. From the Cathedral of Neyland Stadium to the fanatical landscape of college sports, we're breaking down the plays, the players, and the pride of the Southland. I'm Daniel, your host, here with my comrade and co-host, Zach. Grab your orange and white. Let's run through the tea. It's time to give our all for Tennessee. This is Power Tea Talk.
Daniel, it has been a while since I was truly hot about a Tennessee football loss. And that brought back a lot of old feelings that I did not enjoy in my 20s watching Tennessee. Some people might feel this is harsh, but that was pretty disgusting. I would call that a disgusting performance by our Volunteers.
The thing that wound up surprising me most, and I didn't expect to say this, but I think it's a reflection of the Vanderbilt coach. Vanderbilt just was casual with it. I thought it was going to turn into like an ugly thing in the second half, and there was a little bit of chippiness, and I thought they were going to, party all night, and it got so ugly that they just said, okay, pleasure doing business. We'll see you when we see you, which shows how bad it was.
Josh Heupel teams have rarely ever gotten shoved in a locker his entire career, not just Tennessee. Maybe twice since he's been here. And you go to the Central Florida days, I don't think they ever lost by more than 2 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. And they did. I mean, Vanderbilt did whatever they wanted. That defense Tennessee put out that got maneuvered and embarrassed. You could tell they were not prepared. They thought this was going to be the previous 4 years. They had no heart, and it just shows you how quickly the tables turn in college football. Clark Leah and Josh Heupel were both hired in 2021. Tennessee was a plus 117 in point differential in their previous 4 games. That number is now just plus 93. And that is there's a 56-0 game in there, I think, in 23. Vanderbilt was disaster. The lack of pride in this football team, which after watching them against Florida, I thought it was there, just shocks me. It almost has to result in job losses. And I don't know who, I don't know the answers. You cannot have that be your last regular season game of the year, home game against an in-state rival, and let them come in your house and take your food.
I saw multiple people point out, and it's worth noting, but it's no excuse. That is one of the most experienced teams, as in one of the oldest teams in the SEC versus one of the youngest teams in the SEC. And hey, great. I'm happy to know that. We'll talk about future roster stuff on another episode. But all we saw on Saturday was that on the field of an older, experienced, confident team completely shoving aside an inexperienced team that was not ready to do it. And kind of 2 observations. One, in light of kind of the Thanksgiving and what are we thankful for in this college football season, I found myself being thankful that Vandy didn't score 50, which is not where I expected to be. I knew they'd score. We predicted they'd score, but I found myself sitting there thankful they didn't put up a 50 burger, which usually we're on the other side of those things. The other, and I think this is a little bit of availability bias for me, because it's just that I saw this presser. I have so rarely seen or heard, I guess, Heupel specifically mention defensive fits and run fits and defensive scheme in a post-game presser. He said all kinds of things. He's the king of coach speak. He's the king of vagueness. We know this. I don't know how many times I've seen him talk about not fitting up runs in a post-game presser. I don't know that that's an indication. I think he was just pissed off. I don't think it's any indication of what's about to happen because we don't know. But I don't remember many times where he's gone defensive scheme in a post-game presser.
On Monday morning, we're waking up, coming back from Thanksgiving holiday, and shockingly, Josh Heupel somehow has ended up the betting favorite for the Penn State job, which just is like, oh my God, what's happening? And then he gets with Chris Lowe, who is basically the ESPN Tennessee. Well, he used to be ESPN. He's Tennessee's mouthpiece in the media. And he comes out and's like, unacceptable. What happened? I'm not leaving. My expectations are to win titles here, and what happened was not acceptable. I don't think I've ever heard him say that in his 5 years here, other than like, hey, we didn't get the job done after a game, as you mentioned. So I think this felt like maybe for the first time, this felt personal, especially in this type of game. And I don't want to say we're not going to do like, is he on the hot seat or not? I think that's completely unfair. But we're at the point now where the 2022 magic is done. Like, it's run its course. So now it's like, okay, can you get the program consistent? Can you keep it in the top 15? Because they're not a top 15 team right now. Not with what just happened. I'm really disappointed in them. I thought they would come out. They came out pretty well. You know, the offense, the 3-0 to start the game, just brutal. But I'm shocked, honestly. I can't. I knew this wasn't a good defense. I don't want to pretend I thought it was. But I'm shocked that they folded as easily as they did in that second half.
There were some times early on, like really early on, that I thought the D-line looked kind of active. Like, there were moments where I really thought they're like here to play. And whether that was the seniors or the environment or just the rivalry, I really had moments where I was like, they're getting hands up, they're tackling a little bit better than I expected, and it just all came tumbling down. I mean, you know, as far as game flow is concerned, and we'll get into the granular grades and then the more big picture stuff, but from a game flow perspective, I think the call before the half that leads to the immediate touchdown was massive. Absolutely massive, where we actually did make a stop. We made a stop in a big moment. I was proud of the defense in that moment. And I thought the call was, frankly, with what we saw the rest of the game flow, extremely ticky-tack. I understand how they got there, but extremely ticky-tack and, you know, in ways that were really frustrating, especially with what they were doing to Joey in the second half. There was a big part of me in the third quarter that said, oh, that completely flipped the momentum. It completely flipped the game script. That's the reason this is going badly in the third quarter. They just have momentum. The more I got to thinking about it, the way the rest of that game went, it really was just a matter of time. It just sped up the timeline on our defense on the dam breaking, where we were not going to hold up. It was just a matter of when they made it even, and then how quickly they got multiple scores ahead. And we made some mistakes that didn't allow for any breath of a comeback, but it turned from what a momentum swing to, oh, they had us. It was just a matter of time.
It's 4 points. You know, and there was the second touchdown. I mean, Eli Stowers, I forgot who the defender was taking our defender out to the dance with how aggressive he held. I mean, it was so bad. But overall, that's still just 8 points when you think about it, because Vanderbilt's going to kick both field goals. I could not believe how easy it was for them to run and get whatever they want. And we'll get in the grades in the second. We should probably do defense first because of how bad it was. They had such control of that football game. If I was a Vanderbilt fan, and I'm sure if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you felt completely different. I don't even know if I would have been nervous because of how much they controlled the game in the second half and how they could get whatever they wanted in the run game. And the back seven, just, there's nothing there. Nothing. I mean, other than Colton Hood and Arian Carter knowing a run play is coming, there's no hope for any of those dudes trying to play the run. And other than maybe, you know, I know Ty Redmond had a really nice pick, and I think he had another pass breakup. I mean, he had one terrible run fit. I mean, it was god awful. I mean, it was I think their first touchdown. We're out. I mean, it was embarrassing. I'm at a loss for words. Which, kudos to Vanderbilt. I did not think an ass kicking was possible, and they thoroughly kicked our ass.
Completely. I mean, there's no other way to spin it. I can sometimes be the king of like Oh, it happens in games here and there. Things go out of control. It's impossible to account for how the game flow might happen in one particular instance. I can talk myself out of most bad results. Like I can spin a yarn about what happened in Tuscaloosa this year, but there's no story here. There's nothing
You
other than
can't
like
point to one play and
no.
be like, if that doesn't happen, the game changes. Unlike
The
the
ball
other
got
three
lined up and we
games.
got killed. I mean, frankly,
If I had told you the worst game we played this year was Vanderbilt before the season, what would your reaction have been?
I don't know. And especially if you had told me like middle of the season that they had a lot of success against our defense, I wouldn't have been surprised at that point. But if
No.
you had told me, hey, part of the reason for that is like Hood is going to have like probably his worst game of the season. Our edges are going to have probably their worst games of the season. And then our leading tackler is going to be Turrentine, but not for good reasons. We had part of the reason I think it becomes, I've been resistant to this, but part of the reason I think it becomes a Banks conversation is you not only had people in spots not making plays, like Hood had a bad play. He's out of alignment. He over pursued in a very strange way for him. You also had fits that were relying on like Farouk to set an edge or like freshman Ty Redmond to set an edge, and not even accounting for them scheming things open. You had just fits that were allowing so much space. And then I don't know. I think we just get into grades because we'll get into the specifics with that. But I just have a couple pop moments in my mind that are just so indicative of how badly it went. So I'll let you start with your grade and whatever details you have, where it's not like either of us are going to land in a good place.
I went with a 40. The only reason I didn't go 0 is because they did force 2 turnovers. They did have a punt. And you can make the case they were gifted at least 8 points because of an awful missed holding penalty and an awful roughing the passer call. It is probably a different game if it's 21-13 Tennessee at the half. However, the worst defensive performance in a half I have seen from a Tennessee team since the first half against Oregon in 2013. For those who don't remember that game, Oregon put up 670 yards in that game against us. So that's how bad they were, in my opinion. Vanderbilt had 9.15 yards per play. That is 97th percentile. They had a 98th percentile on EPA per rush. It was 0.5 EPA. So what that means is every time Vanderbilt ran the ball, they basically scored a half point because they ran the ball. That is insane. That is not supposed to happen.
I don't remember seeing many instances of something like that where you can put it so plainly like that against anybody.
I honestly can't remember a Tennessee run defense this bad since 2013. Like even in 16 when they were terrible, it was just more like it's 7 yards here and there. I mean, they were just explosive all over. 93 percentile yards per dropback, which is hilarious because they were also 33rd percentile EPA per dropback because they threw 2 terrible picks. So that's how much Pavia's scrambling meant in that game. They went 7 of 10 on third down. They didn't even need to convert a fourth down. If you had told me Vanderbilt put up 45, I would have been like, they must have converted 3 fourth downs. Didn't need to. Every time the defense faced adversity, they shut it down. I cannot imagine, as I said earlier, that you can watch that game and think the linebacker coach and the DB coach and Jim Martinez deserve their jobs. I just don't. I don't know how you can do it. I don't make millions. Heupel is very even keel. I couldn't do it. I would be losing my mind. The plan was bad. The execution was worse. The tackling was atrocious. They quit on that Pavia scramble for 40 yards and then had no pride that he did in the Heisman pose in the corner in England, which was disgusting. Not because he did it, but the fact that they let him do it. If Pavia doesn't throw Tennessee the ball, literally twice he threw the ball to us, it's 50 easy for them. it's easy 50.
Easy 50.
I mean, one of them was right at the goal line.
And it was just a terrible decision.
Yeah.
It was not a great play. It was just a terrible decision. Truly, it was as much of a no-sweat 50 on the table as I've seen other than our offense doing that to other people.
Yes. It was so weird to watch. I'm like, this is how other teams have felt against us.
I don't know the timestamp for this, but there was the long run, like 40 or 45 yarder from their running back. This is not me throwing shade because they came in and kneeling and whipped our butt. He looked like he was running with a piano on his back, and he was running away from our entire defense.
Yep.
He's had a couple good games this year, and he's a good back, as in, like, he's kind of that SEC bowling ball type who is just going to wear you down, and occasionally he'll bust one. He hasn't really been that special this year. Part of that's because Pavia runs the ball so much. He was, I expected him to get 50, 60 yards because they have such a well-designed offense. He popped off for 115 like it was nothing. And then
how many times was Tennessee going to fall for collapsing in? He waits for a half second. He does just a little juke move to the outside, and he got 15. How many times did Tennessee fall for that this year and in that game in particular?
And the number of times that the direction Pavia took off, we had two guys, and especially 22, just overcommitted to one side and just, just jogging after him. And I don't know, all of the possible, like, kind of worst nightmare scenarios came true. And they came true because that's such a good offense. If you just watched this game and you hadn't watched much Tennessee football, and then you learned, like, oh, they have two top corners out, blah, 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 I think anyone watching would have thought, oh, those guys must have been playing all year and they got hurt last game or something. No. This unit's been out there. And the first thing I did, you and I both use Game on Paper. We both like to check that as, like, well, in this case, it was how bad was it? And boy, was it bad. But the first thing I did after they updated their stuff was I went to look to see if Vanderbilt was just number one in every category after that game. Because they were close on a couple of them going in. And I was like, okay, how much did they rise up the ranks? How much did they rise? And I think overall adjusted EPA is now number 2 behind North Texas. And then the only team in the country that has a better yards per rush now is Arkansas, who we know how good that offense was with the quarterback. I don't know. I don't know if it was lack of pride or what. We've seen Heupel pissed off. Usually he's pissed off during the game about a technical thing that he is correct about and the officiating is incorrect about. He will blow a gasket over that stuff. Rarely is it kind of that seething anger longer term into the presser about team performance. He usually goes pure coach speak on that. And I have some thoughts on kind of why that might have landed that way with the offense, but there's not the only positive I can take away from that game at all in any way is Ty Redmond. And that is more of that's a true freshman way to stick it out all year. You actually made a couple plays, and you made a couple plays in the context of everybody else playing horribly the entire game in a really frustrating way.
I was thinking about if Tennessee, I was trying to think during the game if I'd ever seen a team come out worse at halftime defensively. And I don't believe that much in halftime adjustments. I think they're a little overstated. But, and I didn't watch the film. I'm not rewatching that. I'm just not going to. I don't think I've ever seen a defense here just be absolutely flabbergasted by simple stuff like that. Like when Oregon was just killing them in 2013. I know it's a completely different coaching staff. I get that. Like you could just tell, like, oh my God, they have no clue what's going on, and Oregon's so fast. There was a couple times in 21 you could just tell it was a complete talent issue. Like, okay, hey, they know what's coming. They just can't make plays because they've got 2 and 3 stars around and guys who should be third stringers. I don't think Vanderbilt did anything crazy either. I think they maybe did a couple adjustments with how their run game was, maybe did a little more. I think they did a little more pulling in the second half just based off my remembrance of the game, went a little more heavy formation as well. And our teams looked like they saw a ghost, like the Sam Darnold meme. Just I'm seeing ghost out there. That's what Pavi was doing. It's like he was like disappearing and just magically reappearing with some sort of spell. And I just cannot believe not only how bad they were in their gaps and their fits and their scheme. Tennessee, talent-wise, yeah, they're not good, but they're not a disaster. Thielander and Carter are 4-star linebackers. Perlotti's a high 4-star linebacker. Redmond was a low 3-star fine. Turntime was like a high 4-star level guy who went to Ohio State to start. Farouk was a heavily coveted safety. Jalen McMurray has proven himself at the D1 level. And to see how uninstinctive all of them were shocked me. And I just think that's coaching at this point. I refuse to believe this back seven with the recruiting profile from stuff we've seen in the past is this untalented. I'm not saying that they're 2024 Ohio State or 2022 Georgia. Absolutely not. But I am sick and tired of being like, why are our DBs bad? This is the 5th straight year, even other than last year. I'll give them 24. 4 out of 5 years, I'm thinking, man, our DBs are not well coached. This is the 2nd straight year or not 2nd straight year, 2nd out of 3 years. I'm like, man, these linebackers just do not seem to know where they need to be going. And I'm not saying, I think Tim Banks has gotten a raw deal from the fan base for a majority of his time at Tennessee. I think what he has been able to do is really impressive. This is technically the first time they've regressed from a number standpoint. So it was so bad that I'm okay if you did fire him. Like, it was such a disaster. It's not like they went from 10th to like 48. They're a bottom 20 defense. I don't understand what Willie Martinez does well. I don't know what you've seen in William Inge, who's got a pretty decent resume that makes you think he should have this job. These are coveted spots. And with all the coaching turmoil, I would like to think that if you let those 2 guys go, you can get 2 guys who at least can teach basic fundamentals and help guys play more instinctive. Because this cannot keep going. This cannot keep occurring. We've lost the plot at this point with how bad the back seven was this year.
Yeah, I'm sometimes open to the idea of, hey, for every unit, and especially an entire offense or an entire defense, let's get to the end of the year. Let's have clearer eyes about this. Let's throw out the absolute best performance and the absolute worst performance and see how we feel about them. Like, I think that's a fair way to evaluate things sometimes. Like, if they went for 70, let's throw that out. If they got held to 19, let's throw that out and then see how we feel about it. I think it can be a helpful way. Let's throw out the outliers. But this is just something that we were careening down this path for the entire season. And there was finally an offense that was like, okay, we'll push you around for 4 quarters. It's just a wonder it didn't happen sooner. I don't know. If anything, it makes me call into question the ability of some other teams on our schedule to just push people around. Because from my perspective now, and I know they've not had a good offense, but like Arbuckle and Mateer, why did you not score more on us? It's crazy to me. I like there's certain teams that, and we saw it some on money downs, and people definitely had success against us. But I mean, Vandy is very good. Vandy is a better offense than a lot of other ones that we saw all year. But the biggest salt in the wound moment for me was they started to use Stowers on money downs to continue the 4-minute offense in the 4th quarter. Like, it was not like this is a key moment. We need a 3rd and 9. We need a 4th and 3. We got to find Stowers. They did that. They started using him when it was well in hand. And it was just like, oh, yeah, we know we've got this. We've had this in our back pocket the whole game from a matchup perspective. It was the worst game all year from Hood. It was the worst game all year from Carter. I think it was probably the worst game from the front, which was really a bummer. And then the rest of the defense played like they've played all year, which is bad. And it all came together in a perfect storm. I don't know. Part of me wonders if last year when we were incredibly impressed with Tim Banks because we kind of saw the component parts and we were surprised at how good it was. And we had talent. I'm not saying we didn't, but I think, and I've said this before on the pod, like there were some times where I was like, I didn't really expect it to come together like that. Good job, team. You take away some talent from that picture, and then it kind of shows that it wasn't coming together. There were just some guys making extraordinary plays. And you know who like we miss dearly is a guy like Will Brooks, who's just in the right place at the right time and willing to make a play. And that's a kid who was like evolve for life to the max, but not the most talented kid in the world. And he is multiple levels above any back seven we saw all season.
I don't even know if Omari Thomas is on a roster in the NFL, and I would probably cut off my left foot to have him on this team, and that's bad. Like I'm not even saying Norman or Omar Norman Lott. Like I'm just saying like Omari Thomas. Other than Redmond, can you name a defensive player that improved from September to now?
The only story I can tell myself is Arian Carter. And even that was in very specific reads and moments. As in, he played about where I expected, not improved. Other than that, I don't have a lot. And this is what I think we both were thinking about, and especially what I was talking about when I said, like, these last couple games and these last couple outcomes can really swing you from I can talk myself into this roster or I'm extremely worried about this roster perspective. And we try not to let that pendulum swing too much in our analysis. But sometimes you can't help it. Like, the results are the results. There's only so many parts of the roster that you can, like, grimace and give a thumbs up to when you've seen the stuff on the field and when you have concerns about a staff that doesn't show the promise to get them to a better place, which is what we worry about with this staff.
And what's scary, Daniel, they play like 5 seniors on the defensive line. West will be gone. Joseph's going to be gone. Eason and Bailey are both, this is their 6th year. I think Moy's a senior. They're losing 5 defensive linemen. So, yeah, they've recruited that position really well. And I liked what I saw from Utley and Campbell in the non-SEC games. And maybe Ross and Herring with a full year being the starters can do something. Maybe Marion Dye's got a chance. I don't know. But they're going to replace a bunch of dudes. Turntine's gone. Hood's gone. McMurray's gone. They're losing 5 of their top 6 defensive linemen. Carter could go pro, and I don't think that would shock anyone. So, I mean, you're talking, and maybe this is like the offensive line. Maybe just a brand new group comes in and it's better. I don't know that. It's a little bit different because it's 5 compared to like replacing 12 guys. But I'm just shocked, and it still hasn't hit me. Like I keep saying that. You know, it's Tuesday. We're recording Tuesday, and I still cannot believe I'm looking Vanderbilt had 614 scrimmage yards before penalties. It boggles my mind.
It boggles my mind, and we were going to do a version of this anyway, but I think it just makes it all the more urgent. Next episode, when we have like kind of more of the ability to look back on the entire season and look at our grades, and you know, maybe some of the carousel stuff is still spinning, but we kind of know the playoff picture and where we sit in all of this. We're going to do a holiday wish list, and it's just going to be so interesting where we get from a roster perspective on that, and maybe a staff perspective too, but just because I think there are just things that you really got to hold your own priors up and think about if you think there's a path, because we've, as Vol fans, we've all played this game before where you talk yourself into the guys that were lower in the two deep, and I get it, and development, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes it works like the O-line did this year. From experience, most of the time, you're talking yourself into guys who couldn't crack playing time the year before. And that's risky business when it comes to roster analysis. When you are talking yourself into the potential of these guys on the roster who couldn't get into the two deep in SEC games with guys that we weren't satisfied with, sometimes you're really telling yourself a story. And that does not hold up a lot of times in the SEC when, whether it's physicality or experience, you can only be like the young, promising two deep for so long until it's time to, like, the rubber to meet the road a little bit. And yeah, we can be the youngest team in the SEC by snaps, and I think we're close to that. But that doesn't guarantee anything. That just guarantees that we were young in 2025. Great.
The only thing I would push back on that is this staff will play seniors over more talented players. We saw that with the offensive line. We've seen that with the wide receiving core. I don't understand how Braylon Staley was not playing more last year, over Squirrel White with one good arm. So that could be the saving grace. Like Marion Dye, and I'm just throwing the name out, could be really good. And they're just like, well, we have Josephs and we have Bailey and we have Herring, so he's just not going to play. I don't know, but that could be the case. We probably should talk the offense because honestly, really bad second half. And I was actually pretty disappointed overall with the offense.
The offense and what happened in the second half, I'm telling myself a story here. It's not, I don't have evidence for this, but I think what happened to the offense in the second half is actually why Josh was so pissed off that he could not help himself. Because I don't think he was being generous to the offense and mad at the defense for not holding up. I think he just watched his quarterback get double mug blitzed for an entire half with no ability to really do anything about it, and had to watch him take shot after shot after shot. And by the end of the game, he knew the game was out of hand. I don't think he expected a miraculous comeback. I think he had to watch basically like his least favorite version of football from both sides of the ball, and it was just staring right in his face. He stopped running the ball. We weren't ready for certain looks, which I think will be an interesting conversation. And most of all, he just had to watch his guy get popped over and over again. And he basically had 2 quarters and leading up to a presser to get as mad as he possibly could about that. And that is why we saw the comments the way we did. I think he was really, really mad about what it did to the team and to Joey.
I went with a 72.
I had 75, and that was just it, almost because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's fair. The numbers say they were fine, but there were 2 things that stuck out to me. 34% success rate when they ran the ball. And I would say that number was much higher in the first half than the second half. And then the second thing I would say is 5.1 yards per play. That's 30th percentile. So think about this. Vandy had 9.15 yards per play. Tennessee had 5.08. That's a humongous difference that you just can't cover. You brought it up. They clogged up the A gap, and it looked like the offensive line had never seen it before. It makes you wonder why more teams didn't do it. It's like Clark Lee figured it out.
We're going to see this so much next year.
Yeah, after you saw all the drop 8 in 2024, that's what we're going to see now.
Any team, if we don't get more talented backs, and that's not a shot at Bishop, I think we actually owe him an apology, frankly, for the entire season. He was awesome. Any team that has faith in their safeties to get out of there quick and be disciplined is going to maybe not every play the way Vandy did for long stretches, but they're going to double mug, look, and they're going to bring pressure from different places. And they're going to just see if our offensive line, especially if they're new faces, can pass stuff off properly and if our backs can protect. And otherwise, see if we have a quarterback who's patient enough to let something come open. It was really frustrating and it was really effective. And we had certain ways that it felt like we were ready to attack it. But other than Bishop, other than Bishop, our run game it's kind of a sick joke when you look at the numbers.
Star Thomas, 1 carry. I don't get it.
1 carry for 0 yards.
Do not understand it. Looking at the drives and everything, Tennessee starts the game with the ball, 3 and out. Just cannot happen, man. You cannot do that against Vanderbilt, which is shocking to say. But, I mean, you kind of look at it. They get a punt. They get a touchdown after interception. They get another punt. And then they start cooking. They got, 2 big drives. And it's like, okay, we're in the shootout. Let's go. And you think about it. Tennessee forces Vanderbilt to punt. Tennessee gets the ball back with about 7.5 minutes. They're up 21-14. You go down, you score, and you take 3-4 minutes off the clock, you're probably going to win that game. Even with how Pavia was being aggressive throwing the ball, I think you've got yourself a great chance. They couldn't do it. Then Vanderbilt goes down, gets a 75-yard touchdown drive to, start the half, just chewed up clock, 3 and out. And we talked about how this team cannot play complementary football. It really showed. And this is all on the defense. Let's get this straight. I don't want to think like, oh, hey, you know what? The defense, 45 is a good job. Your offense just didn't score 48. That's not on you. Let's not get confused. But you cannot go 3 and out to start the game, 3 and out to start the half, and with this type of defense and think everything will be fine. That Matthews drop's going to live in infamy. I mean, not because it was a drop. It was maybe the worst drop we've seen in a long time. That was awful. The spot. And then there was some criticism during the game of my take that I thought Tennessee should go for it. I'll defend it. But either way, there's no excuse for Matthews to drop that ball. And the game's over. You can tell with the stadium's reaction when he drops it there, they're going to be from behind. It just did not feel like they had that took the air. Like I said, they get up 14. You can go up 14 of the ball, and Mikey has a hold. They called it offensive pass interference, which was terrible.
I was frustrated by the call, but it was a penalty. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hold. Bishop had a great first half, just could not get it going in the second. I was so shocked Vanderbilt got as much pressure as they did. Joey just looked rattled in the fourth quarter. I think he was shocked himself. And lack of Ethan Davis didn't make sense to me. Like, that felt like the perfect game with the pressure they were doing to throw Davis and let him make a couple plays. And just wasn't a good effort overall. I don't think it would have mattered with how terrible we were playing the second half. And I understand that complementary football and momentum do matter in the game. But I don't know. I still would have liked to at least get 38 and give yourself a chance, right? At least put a little pressure on Vanderbilt or make them feel like they need to throw the ball more. I was really surprised the offensive line struggled as much as they did.
Yeah. I think the reason I'm frustrated with the unit is I think we actually can score 38 on them. Like, it's not like we're hoping against hope that we could score some points. I think we could probably score 35, 42 on them. I have no idea if we could ever stop them again with the way our defense was playing. But our offense is capable of more than what they did, and that's why it gets so frustrating. We talk about grading on a curve. The numbers we landed on are almost inconsequential here, but it's more like it doesn't matter how well you played in the first half. We know you can play better overall, and so it's just kind of a blah result. I think I said to you, I definitely said to my wife, the Matthews drop is just such such a perfect ending to the flipping season, man. Like, I hate
It
to
was a
do
kick
that.
in the nuts.
It was just like, that is such a, and again, like, there's all sorts of ways that our final record is lucky instead of unlucky. But it's like the little barely misses we had in big games this year, and this turned into a big game. I was like laughing to my wife about like the not even disagreements, but the biggest moments that you and I have been frustrated about all season are like, hey, he schemed somebody open. Oh, but it was to a freshman tight end and it hit him in the helmet. Hey, he schemed somebody open, and then Joey threw a bad pass and it turned into a pick six that swung the entire game. This was the ultimate, like, hey, he schemed somebody wide open, and we just dropped the ball. And it was like, what else do you want? I don't know. This was like there's not a better play than that. And I'm sure Josh is on the sideline like, what else? And he does have this look sometimes when things are not executed correctly, when people either drop passes or just the quarterback doesn't make the right read. He had this look last year sometimes. He just kind of throws his hands up and puts his play sheet on his hip and says, I'm really not sure what else you want me to do.
That's what it felt like when he kicked that field goal.
Yeah.
To make it 7. And I don't think it mattered. Like,
no.
I think if they go for it and get it, it's 31-20. I still think Tennessee loses. But it almost felt like he was punishing them for not. I mean, Mike was the one who messed up, but it was like, all right, if you guys are going to do this, then I'm just going to kick the field goal. Got almost like a pouty about it. Yeah. And I don't even necessarily blame him, because it is super frustrating when you scheme something up perfect and your 5-star freshman who you're paying a hefty sum, who got a raise after he caught 7 balls as a freshman, doesn't do his job. That's really frustrating, I'm sure.
Well, and I will say, like, Davis had 7 for 85 yards. Like,
I did not feel like that.
No, that's what I'm saying is, like, he ultimately was pretty involved and he had 20-yard catch. But I think because the run game was so thwarted in the second half, it didn't feel like those yards were happening in rhythm. A lot of them came early. It was kind of like he disappeared. And he's such a specimen that I think you're right. If the run game had been clicking a little bit more, I think you would have seen some more complimentary stuff to him off of that looked like our offense, whereas the second half, it didn't look like our offense. The couple of frustrations that I'll note, there's reasons to be excited, in general. We'll get into those next week. But the couple of frustrations I'll note, there was some absolutely silly officiating down the stretch. I mean,
it was terrible.
There were multiple instances of Brazel just being like jungle gymmed and nothing being called, and it was not going to make any difference in the game. But there were also, and this would not have swung things, but there were at least 4 instances where Joey got hit equal or worse to what was called on Pavia. And there was not even a thought of a whistle. And again, I think circling back, I think that's why Josh was so pissed off, because it was a free-for-all on our quarterback, and it got really frustrating.
I can't remember which group it was, but Rick Barnes banned them from Thompson Bowling Arena, and I think we should do that with David Smith, and I'm not kidding. He should not be allowed to referee a Tennessee game. There is clearly something with him. Something screwy always happens. Something's not officiated right. There's always 4 or 5 calls that go against Tennessee that clearly do not match what we're seeing. And it's his crew. And the other SEC crews, I don't know. Anyone else, like, whatever. It's just how it works. But with him, there's clearly something wrong. And look, I don't want to make any accusations or anything like that. A former Alabama player should not be officiating SEC games.
No,
it just shouldn't happen. There's too much conflict of interest. Even if he's just bad, and it's not. I'm just getting tired of it. Like, I'm tired of being like, oh, that's David Smith, the head Alabama official, who always seems to we always seem to have more penalties than anyone else when we play.
We're just fooling ourselves if we think this stuff is like 100% tribal to the point where you and I have a podcast talking that is named after the logo
Right.
And then acting like we could go or anyone else could go and do this in a completely level manner. It's just too difficult. And so I don't know.
The other part I would say, it's not just David Smith. It's wild that Vanderbilt, because they had a 5% chance at the playoff, was getting a favorable whistle in England. It just shocked me. Like, and again, Vanderbilt absolutely won that game and kicked our ass.
100%. And if we had been able to come back offensively, if we'd gotten those pass interference calls and put more points on the board, they were going to score again. It's not a question of that. Yeah.
But with that being said, it was terrible. It was bad.
And I promise you this, and maybe Tim Banks was never going to do this, but if we had lined up in double mug and brought pressure and hit Diego after he threw multiple times, we would have had multiple more personal foul calls.
I agree.
And their entire fourth quarter approach was, and I don't blame them because it worked in some ways. It was pressure, make them hit crazy plays. And we couldn't quite do it, but it's very easy to do when you're taking extra shots on a guy. And like I said, I just think it just built and built and built. And there were some moments in that game, man, when it was still like the comeback was in reach. Joey was a warrior out there. Like he was really playing hard. He was getting every yard that was available. He was executing the offense extremely well. And it felt like all of that just fell flat with that Matthews drop.
Yeah, it did. And I think next week we're going to talk about Joey and his comments about how they did not practice like they should have. I think that's going to be, we need to go on to, there was so much happening in the SEC this week. We got to move on. But with all that being said, I appreciate Joey. I don't know what the next step is for him, but I mean, if we talked about it before we recorded, I mean, this could have been 5-7 if they play Merck or McIntyre, maybe 4-8. So
yeah,
like if you thought this was a disappointing season, I think it has to be mentioned. Like if they did not bring Joey in, it would have been a disaster.
We will have a lot more conversation about big picture roster future stuff next week, and I'm excited for it. I think like some of that stuff's clearly percolating, and we'll have more time to think about it this week as we lick our wounds from the Vandy game. I want to say this before we get to the SEC stuff. Zach, this is a promise from me to you. If you ever leave this podcast for a multi-year deal worth $90 million at LSU, I promise to let you record for the rest of the season and finish out the season with this podcast. I know how important that is to you because of your role model, Lane Kiffin.
$90 million. That is Stephen A. money. That's Stephen A. Smith money, man. I'm not going to text you if I'm making $90 million.
The shtick was as kind of strong as Stephen A's and some of these pressers I've seen too. Let me say this. I'll lead into it with this. Besides my joke about whatever podcast you would join, I sometimes with this stuff you need to realize what we're doing. You need to realize like the lines that get blurred between college football coaching searches and like WWE championship matches, which I know nothing about. And so I'm talking out of my rear a little bit, but sometimes you just need some like pure, unrefined 1,000 proof BS. And Lane Kiffin saying that he has no idea how much money he's making or whether he's making more money or whether there were other offers. Just chef's kiss. Like that is the level of complete lying that sometimes you need in this, just to like remove the veil of any of like meritocracy or actual conversations we're having. And you just realize, oh, okay, this guy, this is Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he happens to be on the mic right now, and then he's going to go coach some football afterwards. But for now, he's playing this character here who doesn't know how much money he makes.
There was a great article on CBSSports.com about Kiffin leaving, and it intertwined what had happened the last couple weeks and just his overall personality. And his mother, I think, used to call him like helicopter because he would come in and cause chaos and then helicopter out as soon as he did. And then another one was an assistant coach of his, like a former one, said Lane literally lives to F people off. He cannot help himself. And that's what he does. And I can't remember if we discussed this on the podcast, if it was pre or if we actually did talk about it on podcast. Lane Kiffin has never lived in the same spot for more than 6 years in his entire life, not just adult life, his entire life. Because Monty was a defensive coordinator.
Yep.
And I'm going to use a personal anecdote. My father, who was in the military, we moved like every 3 years, every 4 years, whatever. And he moved, I think, 4 times as a kid. And literally we're like, it's 2010, 6 years after we'd moved into we'd been there like 6 years. My dad's just like, we have to move. Like he literally could not help himself. He's like looking for houses. He's like, what if we moved here? My mom's like, both of our sets of parents live here. Are you out of your mind? Why would we move? And he's like, because I can't help it. Like, I'm supposed to move. And that's how Lane is. He just cannot stay at one spot. He never will. He has to constantly be on the move. And when Kalen DeBoer eventually doesn't win 2 national titles and they let him go, he'll go to Alabama, or he'll take an NFL job, or whatever he might do. He's not meant to be at one spot for 10 years. Like, I think if Josh Heupel, I'm not predicting this, I think Josh Heupel would be perfectly fine if he had a 20-year career at Tennessee. I think that's the type of personality he's perfectly good with that. I think there are other coaches that are like that, where 20 years they're perfectly happy. He'll never be like that. Do you give, what's the over under for this lasting? 4.5 years? And maybe probably the under would be the favorite.
If you gave me 5.5, I'd definitely take the under.
Yeah.
If you gave me end of the 2030 season, I don't know if that math's right, but whatever. He's going to be in Tuscaloosa, or he's going to be, the Giants coach or whatever the hell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I do think it'd be funny if he's goes to the Dolphins and does badly for 2.5 years and then comes back to Alabama. I mean, why not? I don't know. And maybe when he goes to the Dolphins in X number of years, he'll want to coach LSU in the, ChatGPT Bowl at that time. I don't know. I don't know. Here's the thing. And this is what, like, we can sympathize with Ole Miss fans in this. Eventually we'll be able to sympathize with LSU fans, because the same thing's going to happen. The reason we were so pissed off when he left Knoxville is because we knew he was a good coach.
Hell of a coach.
Yeah. And it's like, we were pissed off because he treated us like, the gum on the bottom of his shoe, which is what he does to everybody everywhere. The reason we were like, damn, dude, is because we knew he was a good coach. We could tell. He took Jonathan Crompton from, we never want to see him drop back again, to like 3rd or 4th round looking guy. And that immediately was just like a hell of a thing. And so when you're Ole Miss and you're like picking up dudes from D2 and you're going to go to the playoff, it's the best ride ever. It's very fun. But these rides, it's a limited ticket event, I guess. And it's going to be the same thing at LSU. I think that the whispers about part of the reason this took so long is because he was seeing what was happening in the Iron Bowl are absolutely true.
100%.
I think he had some kind of out where Marty Smith would have been asking him, why he's flying to Tuscaloosa all of a sudden. And, poor Marty Smith. But I don't know. I think that stuff is real. And I also think LSU is going to have a really good time. But I don't know. There's so many parts of this that I'm just like, this is how we do things, but how we do things is so stupid. Nick Saban finding whatever microphone he could to shill for, his old offensive coordinator to be able to coach Mississippi. And like, I'm like, what are we talking about?
I could not stand when Herbstreit and others were like, well, it's the calendar's fault. I'm like, you dopes. Who creates the calendar? You all do, with your stupid television contracts. You're the reason we play a playoff game December 18th. That's why. And nobody just wanted to say, hey, like, I just wish, and I know it'll never happen, because why would you talk bad about your boss publicly? I just wish somebody would be like, yeah, you know what? we let television run college football too much. Why don't we act? This is partially ESPN's fault. And the fact that they didn't want they would not criticize Lane for wanting to coach at Ole Miss because they didn't want to jeopardize playoff chances for Ole Miss. Just unbelievable shilling to an extent where, and along with what happened Friday night with Texas, where Sean McDonough and Greg McElroy, I mean, I literally, my girlfriend's like,
I can't believe you had the volume on for that.
I don't know why. I did it to myself. Like it's my girlfriend is literally just like, why are you so mad? You don't care who wins. And I'm like, because Greg McElroy is literally, I'm just shaking with anger at him not mentioning Florida. But it all plays a part of this, and they feed the ego. They fed Lane's ego with this the entire time by covering it like it was a presidential election.
And like a charity act from him.
Yeah, like, well, poor Lane. This is such a tough decision. It's like
so hard.
Actually,
he bought a house he bought a house right outside of the campus a couple weeks ago. But this is such a tough decision for him.
And why is it a tough decision? He makes $10 million and is getting just the same amount Ole Miss is offering to coach in a playoff game. Like, I don't.
What's the line from Social Network? If you would have, what is it? If you know how you would have known if you invented Facebook, if you invented Facebook.
Yeah.
You want to know how you would have gotten to coach Ole Miss in the playoffs if you were the coach of Ole Miss in the playoffs.
Exactly.
This is really easy, guys. This is really easy.
It's ridiculous that they were trying to make this like an unfair situation for Ole Miss where they're in the same freaking conference and recruit the same freaking kids. And like, it's unbelievable. And the
idea that Saban would have been okay with, trying to think of the best example, because like obviously he and Kirby got along.
Oh, you mean when Saban got mad that Kiffin was doing two jobs at the same time and did not let him be the offensive coordinator for the national title game because his focus wasn't there?
Would Nick Saban have been okay in 2022 if Heupel came in and ran the offense for a couple of weeks and tried to recruit every single kid in the building and pull them out of it? Like, I'm just like, y'all, this is, and I know you're doing it for a TV script, but this is crazy. You got to be a person at a certain point. Like Nick Saban has extremely concrete thoughts about all of this stuff.
Ole Miss is getting a home playoff game, and they're like, "Well, Lane Kiffin should just go out there and be the head coach." Like as if that is a great idea.
Is he going to wear an LSU pullover while he does it?
Or a bulletproof vest? I mean, good gracious! Like, come on! Like, is he going to coach in a full Navy SEAL uniform?
The full circle on Ole Miss fans. I mean, obviously we are fans, as we're known to do. We showed our ass a little bit when Ole Miss came to town. They totally get it now. They totally get it now. And I think LSU goes to Oxford and Knoxville next year.
That is correct. They do.
That is wonderful. I will say the one part of college football that keeps us coming back is crap like that. Because here's the other thing. And I have a couple other coaching search thoughts here after, and we'll come back to Lane next week, I'm sure, because something stupid will happen. Lane, the one thing about Lane is he hasn't really done anything. And that's not me throwing shade. We started this segment off with him being a really good coach. Totally. But he has precisely dog dookie to show for that. He's built up a Tennessee program and then left. He failed us somewhere else. He built up a nothing program and then did really well at Alabama, but that's Nick Saban's program. He obviously was extremely successful at Ole Miss, has absolutely nothing to show for it. This is the time, and I think he's going to do really well. But there's every single resource is going to be aimed towards the one thing you want to do. And so we'll see if he can do it. And there's every chance in the world that he can, but he hasn't.
I think that's a little unfair with Ole Miss. They've never been this good.
No, but
not since Bott
won anything.
Well, I mean, not anything like title wise, but neither did Brian Kelly. But Kelly, was considered a great hire as well. I think what he's done.
I think Lane's a great hire, but what I mean is the same thing that happened with Brian Kelly. I think the ingredients that Brian Kelly brings are going to be there. He had Jaden Daniels win a Heisman almost immediately, but LSU wants titles 100%. And so unless the ingredients come together for that, he hasn't done what he was promised he would do.
I agree. Lane Kiffin has not won titles because I can't disagree with that. But like, I think that's more impressive than. I think what he's done at Ole Miss is more impressive than like Ed Orgeron winning a national title, or I'm trying to think of another coach that like Jimbo Fisher winning a national title for Florida. I think it's just as impressive. Like to have 3 10-win seasons in 4 years, I think at Ole Miss is really, really special. I understand you're right. This is not going to lead. This doesn't guarantee they're going to win national titles. And I watched that Georgia Ole Miss game, and my thinking was not, oh, Ole Miss just doesn't have the talent that Georgia does. Like that was not my thinking. I think Georgia has better talent on the defensive side of the ball for sure, but I don't think that was such a talent mismatch. But I think that's a slam dunk. That's even better than Kelly because Lane we know fits in the South.
He's not going to be faking an accent.
No, he will not be going my family.
I can't think of the proper
at the basketball.
I can't think of the proper comparison right now, but I'm going to throw names out. And this is not even me saying I have one side strongly on this. Who's a better coach, Ryan Day or Lane Kiffin?
I have to say Day because even though he technically has underachieved, he has not really blown games he should not, except Michigan in 2004.
Who's a better coach, Lane Kiffin or Marcus Freeman?
I take Lane, and that's offensive preference. That's offensive preference as well.
But like Lane hasn't even done the thing that Freeman did last year of like gutsily beat a couple teams.
Yeah, but Freeman took over a fantastic program. Like Kelly had that thing rocking at Notre Dame. Like whatever you want to say about Brian Kelly, I mean, technically Marcus Freeman has not done anything that Brian Kelly didn't do.
I agree, except for like not be a jerk, basically.
Yeah, not kill a kid, but
yeah, I can't think of the proper comparison because again, I think it's a great hire. It's exactly what LSU wanted to do. It's frankly the exact timing LSU wanted to do it with. This is perfect for them.
Yes, I agree.
But I do think, and this always happens with coaching searches, I do think he is being painted as Kirby Smart right now when he doesn't have that resume in any way whatsoever. And maybe he will in 5 years when he goes to coach the Dolphins. But for now, he's just a guy who did a really good job at a program right as NIL came along. And he's extremely good at scheming up an offense. That's still a very good thing. But I don't know that he, on resume, has anything more than a couple of the other guys I just mentioned. Even though I think the excitement level for him is through the roof right now, as it probably should be.
I'm very curious what he does at defensive coordinator. I think that's going to play a big part.
I think they're keeping Baker.
He's apparently maybe like the favorite at Tulane or whatnot.
Oh, true.
So, but if he keeps Baker, yeah, they're going to be cooking.
Yeah, I think this is a larger thing we'll get into next week where like, and this is no shade at any one of these names. Like right now, the best possible coach is like Summerall at Florida. How great he could be. Or like Golesh at Auburn, which I think is a great fit. But as of now, all it is a stab in the dark. Mm-hmm. And Lane is he's more than a stab in the dark, but I think he better do it, I guess is all I could say.
So I think the last thing I want to talk about with this, Mark Stoops got fired. That is one of our permanent opponents. Right? They hired Will Stein from Oregon, offensive coordinator, which I think is a really good hire. He is a Kentucky guy.
I also think Kelly as an offensive coordinator back in Eugene is not impossible. Go ahead.
Chip as offensive coordinator would be interesting with Lanning. I was really surprised Kentucky made that move. Not because, and it's also hilarious that Stoops almost was going to get the Texas A&M job 24 months ago.
I forgot about that.
He was hired. They were ready to go. I think Kentucky did the right thing, and I think Stoops did a good job. I think both things are absolutely true. And Stoops seemed to be like, I'll take the buyout over a few years, 160 days. I don't understand how that happened. I don't understand what AD was like, oh yeah, you want 37 million, 60 days, no problem. But it's crazy that even a school like Kentucky is feeling the pressure to change coach. I mean, Stoops did a great job for them. Like, I think everyone agreed that's a successful tenure, and they were like, hey, it's over. Like, we have to move on.
Well, it's interesting. Like, he became a little bit of a punchline in a way, but that's because of the greater context of Kentucky football. Like, they're just not that program, and he had them in conversations, and then they went back down a little bit, and the back and forth, the kind of yo-yo. And so, I don't know. I don't think he was the answer, but I am surprised that they bit the bullet and just are playing kind of like Plinko with a coordinator at this point.
And got it done so quickly.
Like,
it seemed like, I wonder how much was, do we get Will Stein? Okay, yeah, let's fire Mark.
Yeah, let's make this
Michigan
money
State
work
did
somehow so that we can get Stein or Fitzgerald or whatever.
Like, I mean, Michigan State fired Smith to hire Fitzgerald. Like, that was
100%
clearly the plan, which is hilarious because Pat Fitzgerald was 7-34 in his last 3 non-COVID years. But
yeah,
so I am just really surprised Kentucky pulled the trigger. I thought they'd give him one more year, but I can't argue he deserved it.
The last thing, and I think hopefully we come back to some of the stuff next week, and I mean, like, the lane of it all, but also if we have any other answers on coaching searches, who in the world is Penn State going to hire?
Yeah, so we're recording this Tuesday night. This should be up Thursday. Satake is staying at BYU, which that never, ever made sense. Did you know that Kalani Satake, the furthest east he ever coaches at Eastern Arizona?
God, that was just, that felt as real as, some of these other silly rumors we see. Penn State, that coaching job is what started our whole carousel conversation.
Yep, it did.
And we still don't have an answer at all.
I mean,
do you think they're waiting for Duke's coach?
Diaz? Oh my!
I mean, God. I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of.
They lost out on Chesney. Like, Chesney seemed like their backup plan, and he's taking the UCLA job. So, is it Heartline? Maybe they've got it lined up for Heartline, and they're just waiting to after the Big Ten title game. Like, that could.
I've heard some people say they're going to hire from within to try and not let Franklin pillage the roster, and I'm like, that would be maybe the dumbest decision-making model I can think of.
Oh, well, Terry Smith maybe had a shot and then decided, what if I did the dumbest thing I could do and mention and wear for 3 hours a Joe Pa sticker on my coaching shirt? Just absolutely make sure I can't get the job. I don't know where Penn State would go. Like, I think I'd just take my chance with Heartline and just praise Kirby. Like, that would probably be my best shot at this. I thought it was interesting. Heartline was mentioned as the favorite for the Kentucky job, and then Stein got hired so quickly. So I'm wondering if maybe that's where they're going or what. But the Satake thing seemed real. Like,
oh yeah, like there was actually stuff happening. And then
I think Kalani Satake is very underrated. I think he's done a fantastic job at BYU, and I don't think he's got a proper credit for taking that team from an independent to potentially win the Big 12 this weekend in just 3 years. With that being said, that was not going to work. I just don't think from a culture perspective. But like I said, maybe Heartline, maybe Tony Elliott. Like, is Elliott?
I thought about that. I thought about that.
Makes sense regionally. Like, Elliott's done a really good job. Virginia was breaking out the Tony Elliott Wikipedia page on Monday afternoon when Josh's name got mentioned.
It was rumored.
It was like, oh, I remember those days. So I'm really interested what Penn State does, and I am wondering if Penn State fans right now are putting on the brave face, like, oh, we had to fire Franklin. Like, no, you don't understand. But it's gonna be really interesting if it's like Ryan Heartline, if that's there, and then Florida fans as well. I mean, they thought apparently Kiffin was a legitimate option for them.
It was close.
And Strickland did not want to hire him, which is hilarious. But and they're mad. And I would have loved, like, Summerall, I think, is a really good coach, but they're upset with that one. So we'll see. I'm really curious.
maybe we can come up with some, like, if there's openings, if we know the openings a little more clearly by next week, we'll try to do a little bit of matchmaking, maybe for Penn State if we don't have an answer, but then some of these coordinator positions, just see how many pieces on the chessboard we can guess correctly. It's not going to be many, but it's going to be fun to try.
I mean, I didn't think Pat Fitzgerald was going to be a coach at Michigan State on Saturday afternoon. So,
yeah,
I mean, that one blew my mind. I could not, and not just because I think Jonathan Smith's a good coach, but I cannot believe they were like, hey, let's go from Mel Tucker to Pat Fitzgerald. Like,
Fitzgerald gets as much credit as you can possibly get for just being at a bad program.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, it's not like Fitzgerald was winning the last few years. Like, he had the COVID season that saved him. He went 1-11 his last full season there.
Yeah. It was, like, they were like hapless for some stretches.
And it's not like he's an innovative offensive coach or something like that where you could talk yourself into it. Like, it's not like that's going to be a fun brand of football that you're like, oh, hey, we bring some excitement in the program.
No,
and
they're going to be.
And the other thing is, like, I know he got exonerated in civil court,
sure,
but he still has to go to, like, he still has to go recruit. Like, he still has to go in parents' home and be like, hey, you know, why should I trust you with my child when you didn't know what was going on to your players? Like, that's still a tough conversation to sell. I just think that was a really bad hire by Michigan State.
Yeah, so we'll see if we get any other bad ones in the meantime. And then we've got a massive slate on Saturday that doesn't actually matter at all, really. But it'll be exciting games.
We talked about that last week. Yeah, I mean, Alabama's going to be in whether they win or lose. I guess maybe technically, Pete, did you see that? I don't think you saw this because we just recorded the playoff committee, the Arkansas AD, who's getting ripped over the coals from his own school about his hire, said, yeah, we were really impressed with that fourth down call. That's why we put Alabama over Notre Dame.
I just can't with this stuff, man. I don't engage with it, and I'm happy I don't, but
literally said we liked Alabama's run game as Jam Miller was being carted off.
I just can't even imagine if this is how we decided the playoffs for any other major sport.
Hey, the Lions deserve the 3 seed. I got the numbers.
I mean,
yeah.
This is what it would be. It would be.
Like, here's why the Braves should make the playoffs.
I was looking at the power rankings today that still has the Bears like behind the Packers and behind the Eagles in ways that are like just pure power rankings. Like, let's get some engagement. And this is what we're doing. Like, we're doing a first take segment to decide who gets to go play and try to win. And it's becoming really, really annoying.
Well, Miami and Notre Dame aren't close enough in the rankings, even though they're the same record, so we can't compare them.
Well, we can compare Texas and Vandy because that head-to-head is what other data points do we have? We don't have a record to look at. We just have the head-to-head.
Thank God Texas isn't getting in. Jesus. Nobody wants to bring up they had needed overtime to beat Mississippi State and Kentucky, by the way. Didn't see Greg McElroy bringing that out on the spreadsheet. Also,
and this has been years on. This is not a 12-teamer. This is back when it went to the 4-team invitational. I am so sick of everyone's best mark on their resume being, hey, we lost to this team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, Texas, we're proud of your schedule. We're so proud of you. You don't get credit for not winning.
You also did it to yourself. You left the Big 12 to come to the SEC. You did it to yourself. Like, oh, well, you know, we scheduled Ohio State. We deserve it. I'm like, yeah, you could have played Iowa State, but no, you wanted to go play in Athens and take that TV deal money. So
I just can't with some of it. And you know who else could lose in Columbus? Everybody in the country. So
yeah, you really stood out.
You really did great there. Okay, we'll wrap here and we'll see kind of what the results look like this weekend, and then we'll do more big picture stuff next week. But I mean, we just had to get some EPA pain off of our chest, I think, with this Vandy result.
I'm sorry we were not more positive, people. We usually are. Just there wasn't. We're not going to sugarcoat it. It was bad. You know, we'll do a season wrap up, offense, defense next week. You know, we'll probably wait till after all the playoffs and stuff before we do like a newcomer episode that is on the docket. I would imagine probably we'll get some basketball talk in as well next week, just to kind of do a little check in. There's some concern, but we'll get there. And we're going to keep doing the podcast. That's the other thing. We're going to plan on doing weekly episodes. Probably take a week off here and there, just during dead period. But we are going to do it.
We've got signing or whatever early, mid-early, sort of early signing day coming up, and so we'll see how things swing that way. But, I mean, silly season is far from over, and we've got some awesome football still ahead of us, even if the process to get there is stupid. So thank you all for listening as we roll through it.
Appreciate you guys. Please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Like I said, we're going to keep doing this. So don't quit on us just because football season's ending, or with the bowl game coming up, we'll do a bowl game preview, of course. And we appreciate you guys, and go Vols.